City of Stevens Point Finance Committee meeting, recorded November 13, 2023.
I will call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order at 6:14. Mr. Mayor, would you take the roll, please?
Christensen.
Here.
Morrow.
Here.
Broderick.
Here.
Shore.
Here.
Shuda.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Our first item, or second item, actually, item 2 on our agenda is approval of the amendment to Ordinance 14.14, parent 1 and parent C of the revised municipal code, increasing dog license fee. Do we have a motion? We have a motion by Morrow, a second? We have a second by Shuda. We're open for discussion. First, a presentation by our Comptroller Treasurer, please.
Sure. So with the dog license fees, a portion of it goes to the county, a portion of it stays with the city. And the county is increasing their portion by $2 for dog licenses and by $5 for multiple dog licenses, which would get you a license for up to 12 dogs. So basically, we're just looking to pass on that county increase in the dog license fee.
Okay.
I have a question. How much of the dog license fee does the county take?
They take all but $2 of it. So basically, the fee would be going to $14, and we would keep $2, and the county would take $12.
$2. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You're off, Dad.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay. Hearing none, a vote would be in order. Those of you in favor of approving that amendment to the ordinance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed would be no. That passes. That takes us to item number 3. Approval of the establishment of the election fund and a transfer from the general fund to the election fund. Comptroller Treasurer.
Yes, so this is something that we discussed during the budget presentation. Basically, what we're trying to do here is every year, election expenses are either going up or going down, depending on if we have 2 elections in odd years or 4 elections in even years. So what this will do is it will help to smooth that out so that we don't have this constant up and down in terms of election expenses. And then also, because we have a presidential election next year, we do need to prime the pump a little bit to get that fund started, because otherwise we wouldn't have enough money in that fund to run the presidential election. So we're also would be looking for approval of a transfer of $105,435 from the general fund to the election fund in 2023, so that starting next year, we're all set to go for funding a presidential election.
Okay.
I second.
Motion by Shore, second by Morrow. Comments and questions from the committee first. Alder Shore.
Thank you, Chair. So in this planning, I assume we've sort of found the levels that we want to do of early in-person voting and satellite sites, all those sorts of things are built in.
Yes, and I don't know if the city clerk would like to speak a little bit more to that, but we did fund the full request that the city clerk submitted for what she wants to do for the 2024 election.
Would the city clerk like to comment?
Sure. For the April presidential preference, we will be using the city conference room for that one. However, then for the presidential in November, we'll look at using 2 locations, with the higher turnout. And that is all budgeted in there.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the
The
committee?
only comment I would make is with the presidential elections and so on, there's going to be more oversight and eyes looking and all this and all that comes with that. And I think the extra money is going to be needed to make sure that everyone's trained, everyone's in compliance and so on, because of the scrutiny that's going to be coming with that as well.
You bet. Point well taken. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Any comments or questions from the public? If not, we'll vote on item number 3, the approval of the establishment of the election fund and the transfer from the general fund to the election fund. All those in favor of the establishment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed would be no. Passes unanimously. That takes us to number 4, which, of course, consideration of, nothing big, Corey. Consideration of the 2024 operating budget. Comptroller Treasurer.
Yes, so the operating budget was presented last month, as most of you probably remember, and there have been a few changes to it since then, which is pretty typical that we'll have a couple of technical changes, and those mainly relate to changes in health insurance enrollment. So we did have some employees who dropped health insurance coverage, so that was a savings for the budget. And then what we did with that money is we basically are using that to benefit the Community Media Fund in order to fund the increase in hours that was just approved by the Personnel Committee. And then the only other thing that I wanted to note, one question that came up related to the budget and the cost of living adjustment of 6.26% is, I know some people have asked me, boy, is that the kind of increase that we can afford to do every year? And the short answer to that is no. We're very lucky that this year we had that increase in shared revenue that allowed us to fund that level of an increase, but certainly we can't make any guarantees for the future that in the future you're going to see those kinds of cost of living adjustments. Certainly we'll do the best that we can as always, but just with levy limits and with where we're at with state aid, sometimes it becomes difficult to fund a 6% increase. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Mr. Mayor.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'd go a step further than the comptroller. Comptroller says it's unlikely that we'll be able to do that again, or I would say it's pretty darn close to unlikely. This is an unprecedented ability. And ideally, as the council knows, we set a goal to try and keep up with the cost of living adjustment. We're not always able to do that, but when we are able to do that, I'm glad that we've all chosen a priority to do that. So this is unprecedented in probably every municipality across the state, and I hope our employees understand that. This will likely, very, very likely, not be able to happen again.
Okay, I agree. So a motion to approve would be in order? Moved by Alder, or a question?
Yes. No.
Well, motion? Okay, motion by Alder Morrow. Is there a second? Second by Alder Broderick. Those in favor of approval of the 2024 operating budget indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And no would be, those opposed would be no. Approved unanimously. Item number 5, we have some tweaking to do. So item number 5 is an approval of a transfer from the Tax Incremental Finance District number 5 to Tax Incremental Finance District number 10 for the purposes of financing the acquisition of 1200 Main Street, the former Shopko building. Comptroller Treasurer?
Yes, so at the end of the year is typically when we figure out how we're going to finance everything in terms of borrowing or using other funds. And one of the projects that we need to finance is the Shopko acquisition, and that's $1.4 million. And we could borrow for that. However, if we borrow for it, because it would likely be sold to a private developer at some point or used in some kind of private development, it would be what's called a taxable borrowing. And basically there's 2 different types of borrowings that we can do as a municipality. One is tax exempt to the investor, so the investor buys our bonds and the interest is tax exempt, which is very, very favorable for those individuals who are purchasing our bonds. So they give us really good interest rates on that, so we get our lowest interest rates with tax exempt bonds. The other type is taxable, where the interest that those investors earn on those bonds are taxable. And so because of that, then they demand a higher interest rate to offset that tax liability. So in order to optimize everything, to structure it in the most advantageous way possible, in order to keep all of our debt at the lowest interest rates that we can possibly get, we're recommending to use funds on hand to finance this, which basically would be funds from TIF District 5. TIF District 5 does have the money to finance it, so we would be looking at transferring $1.4 million from TIF District 5 to TIF District 10.
So moved.
Moved by Alder Shore. Is there a second? Second by Alder Morrow. Comments and questions from the committee? Any comments or questions from the public? I think it makes sense, and it just makes financial sense for the city. So all those in favor of the approval of that transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed would be no. That passes unanimously. Item number 6, approval to reallocate a portion of the American Rescue Plan Act funds for land purchases related to future subdivision development.
Yes, so very much related to the previous item where, putting together the overall financing package for the city in terms of the things that we've spent money on throughout the year. And again, looking to optimize that use of tax-exempt financing. Purchase of subdivision land, unfortunately, does not qualify for tax-exempt financing. It would be taxable. So what we're looking to do is a little bit of a change-up, basically. Earlier, actually last year, the council approved allocating $2.5 million of our American Rescue Plan Act funding to the general capital projects for 2023. So what we're looking to do is use some of that American Rescue Plan Act funding for the land purchases instead, and then those projects that would have financed qualify for tax-exempt financing. So basically, we're swapping two things. We get to the same place in terms of being able to finance all of our projects, but again, maximizing that use of tax-exempt financing.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Alder Shuda and a second by Alder Morrow. Questions and comments from the committee?
Seems like kind of common sense from what Corey was saying to help us save some money. And
Absolutely. And the total
well,
amount of dollars are the same. It's just this allows us to take advantage of the tax exemption.
shifting pots.
Yep. Makes sense. Any other comments? Questions or comments from the public? If not, we'll take our vote on item number 6, the approval to reallocate that portion of the American Rescue Plan Act funds for those land purchases. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and an opposed would be no. Item number 6 is approved. Item number 7, a preliminary approval of our 2023 general obligation borrowing. Comptroller?
Yes, so we're looking to move forward with a general obligation borrowing before the end of the year in order to finance the various capital projects that we've had throughout the year. So we're looking to borrow $9,750,000, or that's what we're looking to finance in terms of capital expenses. It would be one tax-exempt borrowing and a repayment period of 8 years, and the total borrowing will be a little bit higher than the $9,750,000 because we also have issuance expenses as well that will need to be covered by the borrowing. And then at next week's council meeting, what we'll do is we'll bring forward a parameters resolution, which basically sets the parameters by which we're allowed to borrow that money. So it allows staff to go and borrow up to this amount as long as it doesn't exceed a specific interest rate. So we'll be looking for that approval next week so that we can go ahead and get the borrowing closed before the end of the year.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Alder Shore. Is there a second? Alder Shuda. Comments or questions from the committee? Pretty straightforward. Any comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, we will take a vote on item number 7, our preliminary approval of the 2023 general obligation borrowing. Those in favor of the motion would signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed would be no. That's approved. Approval to sell the property located at 5595 Regent Street. Comptroller.
Yes, so this was purchased to complete an annexation string so that we could annex some of the property north of that for the purposes of subdivision development. So now that we've bought the property and the annexation is being completed, we can now sell the property since the purpose really was just to allow for that annexation to happen. So we would be looking to list that property for sale.
Questions or comment, or first, do we have a motion? A move approval by Shore. Any second?
Second.
Second by Morrow. Comments or questions? If you remember, this is the property that we purchased in order to make things contiguous and be able to enable that annexation. Questions or comments?
Looks like we might make some money on it, so.
I think we'll be fine. Any questions or comments from the public?
You have to do the name thing here?
Yes.
Okay, Dave Plassance, 6th District Alderman. Yeah, looking this over, it was kind of nice to see a comparable analysis finally for a property that the city is working with. What would have been nice would have been also, though, to see the property itself, what square footage it has, how many bedrooms and stuff, just so you could kind of look at it in comparison. What kind of brought my attention to this and to come up here is that I'm seeing that this is listed as the seller's net sheet, and it's a 5% commission. Normally, realtors have 6% commissions. So I'm hoping that there is some deal worked out, or in the offer to purchase, or the offer to sell, excuse me, that it is listed as a 5% commission, because at $400,000, that's an extra $4,000 that would be given to the realtor. I have one question, is that it looks like at the 390, we're basically breaking even. Is the city willing to sell if this at a lower price and take a loss?
A determination to actual sell would have to come back to the council. This is just to list the property at this point. So this won't be actually selling. This is just approval to.
It's food for thought, though.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, do you have any comment?
Sure. So we are working with a realtor to provide the service that has been worked out already. The commission, Director Karnowski was taking care of that. He had some other events or engagements that he had to deal with tonight. Whether the city would be willing to take a loss on it or not, my personal opinion is no. We shouldn't have to take a loss on it. But ultimately, it's the council that makes that decision. Right. If you want to set a minimum price, a maximum price, that's your purview, and the sale would eventually have to be approved, whatever it is, through council.
Right.
But the intention is no, not to take a loss at all.
Okay. So, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we will vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed would be no. That passes as well. That gets us to, I was looking down, I got to scroll back up. Approval of claims paid. That's pretty straightforward. I think we can go right to a motion.
Motion, so moved.
A motion by Morrow. Is there a second? Sure. Second by Broderick. Okay. I didn't see anything unusual. Do any of the committee members have any questions or comments on any of the claims as listed? Comptroller, were there any that you wanted to cite?
The only thing is, looking at the big claims, again, you've got a lot of contractor payments this time of the year, where a lot of work got done during the summer, and now we're paying some pretty large bills, which is typical for this time of the year, especially with road construction projects, for sure. So.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, we will vote on approval of claims paid. All those in favor of paying those claims signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed would be no. That passes as well. This time we'll be we'll need a motion to adjourn and go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parent 1, parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The topic discussed will be approving and authorizing the 2024 to 2027 ambulance service provider agreement between Portage County and the City of Stevens Point. Is there a motion
move that we go into closed session.
Alder Shore makes that motion to go into closed. Is there a second? Second by Alder Schuda. All in favor of...
Roll call.
Yeah.
Roll call, you're correct.
Need to do a roll call. I can do it. Broderick.
Here.
Or, so it'd be
Yes.
I to go into closed session, or, okay, great. Christensen.
Aye.
Morrow.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
5-0.
Okay. Okay, we're back in open session. Motion to approve and authorize the 2024 to 2027 ambulance service provider agreement between Portage County and City of Stevens Point would be in order. Moved by Morrow. Is there a second? Second by Schuda. All in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed would be no. That passes unanimously, and we are adjourned at 6:47.
Video recordings of these meetings are available on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.